what's up, folks? Good afternoon, and welcome to Tuesday Talk. I'm lagging here a little bit, so give me a second. Internet's going to be kind of funky for everybody right now because of the heat. So, a little conversation before we start. Gemma, as everybody knows, her little one's out of school officially today. I think he gets off the bus at 1:15 or so. So me and Ryan are going to take over Tuesday Talk for a while until she can come back. And hopefully there might be days she can come in. So it'll be me and Ryan for Tuesdays from now on. And unless, Ryan can't make it, then it might be just me. But so the lineup's going to change a little bit. I'll still do Wednesday nights and Saturday nights. And then Pixie every other Thursday. I believe she will be on this Thursday. I will let you know, or someone will let you know as soon as she lets us know. But as far as I know, she does plan on being here. I know you guys miss her a lot. I do too, to be honest. And then on those Thursdays, I'll take off. And that's about it. Now, Gemma will be here Friday night for Oracles. I'm stalling because Ryan's got his camera off. So Gemma will be here Friday nights for Oracles at 7:15. So please join us. It's always a fun ride. We just asked to try to get your name on the list by 10. After that, it's her call. Here's Ryan. We'll bring him in now. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you doing today?
I'm not bad, actually. We're going to pick up, I guess, our conversation from Saturday night.
Yeah, the Pale Crawlers.
Yeah, because we were going pretty good there until everybody had to go to bed. So
yep. The inevitable bedtime for everybody.
Yeah, well,
we had some people stoked. People were getting excited about the Pale Crawlers, man.
Yeah, actually, I had a couple people text me after the day after Sunday and say, "Man, that was like kicking," and I'm like, "Yeah." And that's what I really wanted to do with the Gemma replays, anyways, was do one of her stream uploads and then talk about it afterwards. But we always end up just rapping. It just turned out to be another Wednesday night. But Saturday was good because we had some theories going too.
Yeah, dude, the Pale Crawler topic, it's interesting as hell anyway. There's really no substantial evidence to prove that they exist, but it's something that's garnered a lot of attention, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, we're going to start off with letting you tell some of the encounters you have.
Okay. So I do have some historical encounters.
From there, and then we'll just talk about it as we go. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So apparently, June 14th, 2008, Higgins Lake, Michigan, right? Allegedly, 2 hunters were attacked by a Pale Crawler. One of these men were actually killed. And the forest rangers in that area told everybody it was a bear, that a bear did this, a grizzly bear or a black bear. But the guy that survived, to this day, the guy who survived, though, he maintains that it wasn't a bear, that it was some kind of pale humanoid creature with black eyes and really long limbs and a very aggressive attitude. So that right there shows that they have a nasty attitude. They're not friendly things all the time. Then we got Blue Crossroads in the chat. Hello. Where is everybody today? You guys are so hyped up.
There's people here. There's 10 people here. They're just not talking.
Chit chat. Don't be antisocial, man.
They're still trying to wake up.
So there's another one though. There's one that really piqued my interest as a Dogman researcher. This one came off as really weird, and this took place in April 19th of 2022. A young couple was stopped at the intersection of what's the name of the road? Tell and Bray Road. Bray Road should sound familiar to everybody out there. So they saw a Pale Crawler run across the street and actually ran through the cornfields. And apparently it went in front of the car, but then it came back, and it was in the back of the car, and it was standing in the back trying to look through the back glass of the car.
Was it actually standing, or was it kind of propped up on the car? Because every time I've seen them, they've always hunched over. I've never seen one actually stand up.
A little bit of both. They said that it stood up for a while, but it kind of had its hands propped on the trunk, and it was trying to stare in the window. And that's really fascinating for me because Bray Road, the Beast of Bray Road, So there's debate. People are saying that, oh, they didn't see a pale crawler. They saw the hairless version of the Beast of Bray Road. I don't believe that. I don't believe that because it didn't have
different entity.
Yeah, it didn't have the snout. It didn't have the canine ears. It didn't have the tail. It didn't have the hawked legs. And it was actually pretty short. They said it was about 4 to 5 feet tall. Okay, now the height does fit into the Beast of Bray Road thing, but the pale skin, they said that the skin was actually reflecting the moonlight, that it was so pale that the moonlight was glowing out the skin.
It looks like it glows.
You've seen that? Okay, so we're definitely going to have to talk about that then. So, I mean, you got military guys that are seeing this thing too.
Oh, yeah. I have friends. One was stationed in Africa, and he said he's seen them a couple times there. And it was always around deep forest mountain areas. I don't know why he was there. I don't know if he was actually stationed there or he was there vacationing, but he's a military guy. And he said he's seen them. He says the same thing I've said is if the moon's full, if there's any kind of moonlight out and they stand in it, it seems that they're like they're fluorescent or they kind of glow. There's kind of like a sheen to them. That sets off a light, and he said that they were probably about. He said the 2 that he saw distinctly were probably no bigger than 5 feet tall if you stand it up. He said they were always hunched over, running on all fours. Said the faces you could because their faces were kind of bland, but the dark set-in eyes.
Yep.
They had teeth that were jagged, but not like fangs. They were just jagged, like they'd been
like rotted out, kind of.
Yeah, and all nasty looking. And said that it made a kind of groan noise when it would run, like it was like taking all of its effort to move real fast. But he said it moved super fast.
Yeah, that's what I get that a lot when I get reports of these things, that these things move like the Flash.
Yeah, the ones I saw moved real fast.
Yeah, they're there 1 minute, but when they start, moving, it's just like boom, they're a white blur, So it's like, oh, that's interesting, And there's a lot of reports though, man. I mean, it's something that, like I said earlier, there's really no concrete evidence to show that they're out there, but so many people are reporting them, and it's like, I think it's something that people really need to start looking into more because they're almost paralleling the Bigfoot reports, that there's almost as many with the Bigfoot. So, I think people really need to start taking these things a bit more seriously.
Oh yeah, no doubt. When I think it was like the 3rd or 4th time I saw one. I was down in Athens, Ohio for the Halloween party. The Athens College used to have one killer of a Halloween party down there.
I bet.
A whole college. And it was insane.
Nice.
We were down there for the weekend. And it was pretty funny. We were talking to a bunch of people in the bar, and they kept telling us, because we go down there, there's a mental institution that's been abandoned.
Right.
So we go down there, and then we make it a point one night during the week to go and check it out. There's actually a stain on the floor where one of the patients was left behind when they vacated the place.
Oh.
And they literally just curled up in the ball and passed away. And then left a stain. It's creepy, and you hear all kinds of weird noises and talking. Well, instead of there, some guy was telling us, "Oh, these people are talking about seeing a ghoul just south of Athens University, because it's all forest and hills down there."
Right.
And he kind of gave us the idea where it was at. And I said, "You sure it's a ghoul?" And he goes, "They say it's long and lanky and white." So I'm like, interesting. So we go down there, and we spent 2 nights. We went down 2 nights because the first time you don't see it. We didn't find anything. We heard a lot of weird noises that you would, because you got to watch, because peacocks sound like screaming babies.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they do.
And then you get all the other fun noises that come along with that, with forest. But we kept hearing this moaning, grunting noise all the time, and we couldn't tell if it sometimes black bears will wander up into that area from mountains. And so we didn't think nothing about it. But the second night we went, it was really weird. we kept seeing something moving around, always just on the outskirts of us. And we were deep in. And it was kind of moving around. And the one guy kept saying, it looks white. Well, it was pretty dark. The moon was out. It was like a quarter moon or something. I remember the moon being out, but it wasn't a full moon. And it kept staying underneath the trees. Like it would hang around the trees. It turned out we found out we weren't too far from a creek and a small cave. So we find the cave because you could hear it. It looked like some of the creek actually veered off. It split. And some of the creek actually went down into the cave.
Oh, interesting.
And so we find it. It was pretty funny, actually. Two of us, there was four of us, and two went one way and two went the other one. And the other two guys found the cave. So we're hearing, hey, come here, check this out. We find it. It wasn't a very big hole. Maybe a little bigger than a manhole cover, like a sewer. So we're shining flashlights down it. None of us could get the courage to climb into it because it kind of goes down.
I bet not.
But the water was going down into it. And
interesting.
We stood around for a while and talked and debated if we should try to go down in there. Hello, Smoochie. Hello, Jason. Hello, baby. Hey, daughter of mine. Anyways.
Hey, Smoochie. What's up, Jason?
My daughter's here.
Gemma's not here today, Jay.
Yep. Yeah, she knows. Oh, he didn't know. I thought Ashley said that. Anyways, so while we're standing around talking, we start hearing what sounds like leaves moving, like branches. And all of a sudden, Sam looks up and goes, look. And you can see this white thing crawling around in the trees.
Whoa.
And he goes, watch it. And you could barely see. It was moving really fast. But you could see it. It was like stretching between branches.
Crazy.
And I go, what is that? Well, it got real quiet. I mean, everything in those woods stopped. It was dead silent.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, and then the other guy, I think his name was Melvin. It just sounds weird, but I think his name was actually Melvin. I didn't know him too well. He was one of the other guy's friends. And Dan were like, it's coming down the tree. And it literally came down the tree head first. And it scooted.
Wow.
And then it just kind of booked toward us and then disappeared. And then veered off and disappeared. Grunting real hard. And it was moving fast. And we didn't think much about it. And we were like, we're out of here. So we started to leave. And we could hear what it sounded like following us again. This time you could hear it scurry across the land. But there was still no noise in the forest. Just this thing moving.
Right.
We get back to the car. And Dan goes, look, there it is. And it's standing just on the edge. Well, I shouldn't say standing. It's all hunched up on four. And you can clearly see that it was a pale face, pale body. The moonlight was just in it. It didn't glow a whole lot, but you could see it. I mean, it's like it shined. Like it was like it had a slime or something on it. It was really weird. And the eyes were deep. It wasn't making any noise. So the mouth was closed. So I couldn't see the teeth at the time. And just watching us, it was like, you know how a dog looks at you and kind of tilts its head?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it was doing. It was just
weird
doing this. And Dan took a step forward. And as soon as he took a step forward, it backed up and turned around and it was gone. And we go, it's time to leave. So we left. But
that's creepy stuff, dude.
But it crawling around the trees was the creepiest things. Because, see, you guys were joking about me about the spider entities. One of the spider things that I saw that looked like it had a human body, it was literally climbing around the trees like this thing was.
That's nuts.
And it was creepy. But this thing was creepier because we first thought it was a ghost. Because all you saw was this white. It was like it was, we thought it was a ghost. Because the guy goes, well, a lot of people, there was a lot of people that come through here, like pioneers and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but when that thing showed itself, that was probably the first time I saw one was really weird because I didn't know what it was. And It literally came out of a sewer just outside of a park.
I'm not surprised.
It didn't have a lid on it. Oh, it was just a hole. But
Okay.
you knew it was for drainage.
Mhm.
And it literally climbed out of it, looked at me, and it was white. I didn't get much details of it. It looked at me and just booked on all fours into the woods. And I was like, holy crap. And the guys I was with then, the girl that we were with, Sandy, freaked out for like days. She's like, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was.
That's understandable, though, man. I mean, these things would be very unsettling to see. I mean, Bigfoot or Dogman could be one thing, but when you see something that's humanoid with skin like that and those deep black eyes, how do you even register that in your mind? You know, how does your mind make sense of that? You know, it's something that's not really supposed to exist. I mean, well, maybe for casual people, it's not supposed to exist. But as a cryptozoologist, I always kind of knew of pale beings because of Dover Demon, you know, and having grown up in Massachusetts, Dover, Mass, that was a very big thing. But how I actually found out about these things was when I started my Wendigo studies. I was actually talking to a Cree man from Canada. I was asking about the Wendigo, and I asked him, you know, could there be anything that they might have misidentified that led to the Wendigo legend? He was like, actually, look into the Ashmen. I was like, you know, Ashmen, what are the Ashmen? And so he just started describing it. He was saying that there are these beings that are about maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 feet tall, really, really lanky, really skinny. They have extremely long limbs, really long fingers. They're bald, you know, they have these black eyes and these rotting teeth. And I was like, oh my God, that's a pale crawler. And he's like, well, yeah, I guess you would call them that in the States. Sure. So I started looking into that. And when you actually look at the pale crawlers and you look at the original depiction of the Wendigo, they're almost like this ghost. It's almost like one in the same, you know, so that really led me down some deep rabbit holes. You know, when people say they see Wendigo in Michigan or Ohio or California, are they seeing Wendigo or are they seeing these pale crawlers? You know, it does make you wonder, dude.
Do you think the Wendigo lore has gotten down this far?
I don't think so.
It could be anywhere.
I don't think it's gotten down this far. I think what it is, I think actually the pale crawlers in a way kind of inspired the Wendigo, you know, because put yourself in the position of, you know, the Native Americans from back in the day.
Right.
You're out in the wilds of Canada, okay, and you come across these human-like entities that look human enough. They have the human appendages. They move like a human to a degree, but you also have the Wendigo belief. So what they probably did is they saw these things and they were like, Wendigo. They thought those were the Wendigo.
Yeah, because those pictures I showed the last time we talked about Wendigo, and it showed all the different types.
Yeah.
You said right then and there, those look like pale crawlers too.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, people say that like there's a lot of differences, which there are, but stop and think about it for a moment. Say you get a pale crawler that's running around the woods of Canada and it's wearing pelts, it's wearing furs, right?
Right.
Who say it's not wearing a deer head or something like that, or wearing branches or antlers. Now take the pale crawler description, right? Put a set of antlers on that. That looks almost identical to the Wendigo, does it not?
Yeah, it does. It does. Now that I think about it, and I have been thinking about it since we talked about it last time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've got a couple. Yes, blue. True. Snake skin looks like it's wet. Then it's not. That's.
Yep.
It didn't have like a snake skin, but yeah, it had the same principle. To me, it looked like a slime. Or like a coating of something that was on it.
Right.
But if it came from that water hole, maybe it was wet.
Could be.
Where that cave came, where that creek went down in that creek cave.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be moss and mold and all that stuff in caves like that, too.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think it was a rat. We get big rats here, not like New York, but I think the biggest rat I've seen here was probably the size of a dachshund. I mean, not a dachshund.
That's a big rat.
Like a hot dog. Yeah, and he was big. He was huge.
Good Lord.
But that's the biggest rat I've ever seen here. And that was down by the Columbus. I had a family member that used to live by the trash area where we dump trash. And he would get these huge rats. And this wasn't no rat. This thing it had hands, it had feet, and it ran on all fours. It was long and lanky, and it moved really fast. and it grunted when it run, like it was, using everything it had to move that fast.
Yep. Hey, Moogs, what's up, brother?
Hello, Andrew. Welcome in.
Mog,
how you doing, sir? I'll be there tonight. Don't worry. I'm going to come in and harass you like you did with me Wednesday.
So here's something interesting, though, is like, we just had the Wendigo talk, right?
Yeah.
But, the Algonquins actually spoke of these things separately from the Wendigo, though. They actually refer to them as the people before the people. And according to those stories, what happened is they were an ancient tribe. And for some reason, they got really tired of humanity. Like, other tribes just got on their nerves and they decided.
Sounds familiar, actually.
So what they decided is we're not going to live like normal people anymore. We're going to go underground. So according to the Algonquin stories, this tribe went beneath ground. They started living in caves and subterranean tunnels. And as time went on, their skin started turning white. Their eyes started turning black. They lost all their hair. And that's their version of.
Well, you adapt to your environment. When you live in an environment for so long, I mean, you literally start to adapt to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, question. You know of the ant people that the certain tribes have talked about.
Yeah.
That come up from under the ground. Now, question. Do you think they could be tied to paraquallers? Even though they're not white, could they have been wearing something? Maybe they were a little more intelligent?
There's a possibility. I mean, sure. Maybe that was them before they started losing their skin color. Things progress. It's kind of like an evolution of sorts. Is before, when they first took to the underground, their skin color was still there. They still had the dark tone, but over time, it started getting more and more and more pale. So you had the pale crawlers.
Right. Here's hello, consciousness, and welcome. Actually, I'm gonna put your question up here. We've had this discussion because there was things that I didn't think. I don't think they're pale crawlers, but I called them rakes only because the creepypasta reminded me of these things.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, Ghost. The pale crawlers were actually the inspiration for the rake. Okay,
well, that's because
they weren't really well known. Back when the rake was created, the pale crawlers were just kind of like a thing that people mentioned every now and again. It wasn't really a big topic. So when they were creating the monster, when they were creating the rake, they used the pale crawlers as the basis for the rake. That's why there's so many similarities.
Right. And yes, you're right, Chris. I meant Blue. Yep. That it's more of a diva. Yeah. You're regressing.
Yeah, pale crawlers also inspired the movie The Descent. If anybody's seen that movie, the pale crawlers in that movie were, whoa, man, I would not want to run into those guys.
What do you think of the things in the cave, in the movie The Cave?
I think that was
down in there like bats.
Yeah.
And that was like a disease. If you were down there, you picked up that gene or whatever it was that turned those people into that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because you remember at the end of the movie, she gets out and her eyes are all messed up.
Yep.
And he was afraid they were gonna adapt to the light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of different takes on it. There's even a supernatural take on the pale crawlers. Some of the tribes actually believe that they come to you in your dreams, that they can only enter our world through our dreams or nightmares. So they're not really here physically. So there's a lot of different aspects to these guys.
Right. Now, like I said, the things that I was calling a rake, but I don't think are pale crawlers, it's only because I get a certain vibe from them. They're pale, but they don't shine. You can see their eyes are usually they're not like black balls. They're like reptilian eyes, but they're like more of a fluorescent. You'll see their eyes before you see them. Type of thing. And their fingers are real long and pointed. Real pointed, like really weird. And the thing had pointed toes too. The toes were like the fingers. It had, in other words, the hands and the feet looked identical.
Okay.
Like it didn't have feet. It was running on 4 hands with long, pointy, and the teeth were kind of like the teeth I saw on the Hat Man.
Okay. Interesting.
They're jagged, just nothing but points.
It
also made more of a screeching, just this back crawling sound. I mean, you hear it, and it would literally make your spine shiver.
That's
And
creepy.
it moved fast, but it also seemed to like, when it moved, it seemed to disappear.
Wow.
When I seen these things, and I've only seen them a couple times, and one was not too long ago, about 3 years ago, when actually it was a little longer than that, because it was probably the last time me and Greg were together, and I saw it down in Athens, and it was by a graveyard.
Interesting.
And it was just the creepiest, and I kept saying, what is this? I had this. It's like I associated it with something like the crawlers, but yet it just gave off a different vibe. And when it would run behind tombstones, it was literally running behind tombstones and stuff. Like, it was just hanging out there. But it would like, I don't know, it was weird. It'd run and disappear, then pop up somewhere else. Run, disappear. Weird. Pop up somewhere else. It was like it was going through these like little portals or something. It was creepy as crap. Because the one guy I was with said Greg wouldn't acknowledge it because he doesn't like that stuff. So he just kind of went back and sat in the car. But the one guy I was with kept saying he saw it come out of the ground.
Whoa.
And I'm like, I didn't see that. And he goes, yeah, it came out of the ground. And I'm like, where? Do you see a hole? And he goes, we went and looked for a hole. And we couldn't find a hole or anything.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned
that. Out of the ground.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting you mentioned that, because I have a neighbor that lives in this complex. She actually was seeing something that looked like the pale crawler, but she was only seeing it when she was either sleeping or when she was really, really tired. So when she was super exhausted, she would see this thing climbing up her wall. And she would try to look at it, but before she could actually look directly at it, it would disappear.
Sounds like a sleep paralysis thing.
Yeah. So one day, though, she actually managed to look right at it when it was on her wall, and it looked right back at her. When she acknowledged it, she said it made this horrible, horrible screeching sound, and it looked upset that she had seen it. So I don't know what the hell that could be, man. That's just something that's not normal.
Blue, I've never heard of this. I wouldn't say this thing had green. It was kind of pale, but it was like, it was pale. It was kind of white, but it was like, I wouldn't say scarily. It looked like it had, like you would see on a toad, skin like on a toad, or on like a salamander or an amphibian. That's what kind of skin it looked like, but it was white, and it didn't look slimy. It just looked off-putting. But the eyes is what gave it away when we saw it the first time, because the eye shine was just incredible. And we didn't even have a light. We were just going off a light that was on in the street that was aimed at the cemetery. Because when we first saw it, it was like behind one of those big, tall cross monuments.
Right.
And it literally kind of like stood up and looked around it like this. And the eyes were bright. I mean, the eyes were so bright you couldn't see the face. Then when it kind of pulled away, you could see they looked kind of reptilian. They had, they were slots, and the irises looked kind of a reddish orange.
Ooh, that does not sound pleasant.
See, and it wasn't, because you did. I mean, all of us see that before Greg saw what we think was a werewolf. It could have been a dog, but I don't know. He would not acknowledge this stuff. He'd just go sit in a car, or he'd just go leave. But this thing was so weird, the one in the cemetery. I actually began to think that was a ghoul.
It could be. It could very well be. I mean, a lot of different cultures describe the ghoul as the same way you just described what you saw.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's got to be something to it, right? If other cultures are describing what you've seen, you can't really ignore that. There's got to be something to it.
And Blue, there have been aliens for some reason seen around cemeteries.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that?
Yep, I have.
Are they interested in our dead? What would bring an alien to our graveyards? I'm just curious about that. It's just
It could
kind of
be
morbid.
curious about the cause of death, I guess. And if you want to go a little bit
Maybe,
more, maybe a bit more morbid, maybe they're harvesting organs or something. I mean, I know that's pretty nasty and pretty disgusting to think
You're
about.
looking for fresh graves?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. I never thought of that.
I mean, that's entirely a possibility. I mean, unless we get an alien here to ask them, hey, why are you in the graveyard? We can only
I have a
theorize.
friend said they were building a Frankenstein.
Hey, you never know, dude. You never know. I mean, it'd be kind of weird to think of a alien created Frankenstein's monster running about, but okay.
Good. You know, that's true too, Ma, right there. DNA.
Yeah. Yep.
That makes sense too.
Yep. So I know with ghouls, though, the ghouls sometimes tend to feast on the bodies, you know, and
Right.
I believe that to an extent, and they say that pale crawlers do the same thing, man do the same thing, but I have a hard time believing it to a degree, though, because nowadays we use a lot of chemicals in people's bodies before we bury them. So it's like, would it really be a good idea for something to eat a dead body like that? Not really. They'd be better off finding roadkill.
And you think it too is every pale crawler that I know that I've seen seemed more skittish of us. They were curious.
Yeah.
Seemed curious, but they never really came very close. They always kind of stayed a good distance. And if you tried to move closer, they would book.
Yep.
Now, this thing that we saw in the cemetery that I've seen a couple times, it wasn't scared of you. And it gave you the vibe, come at me, come on, you know, I dare you. Kind of
well,
vibe.
maybe they're kind of like, you know, other animals are. There's some animals that are really timid and they'll run when they see you. But then there's some animals that just got balls of steel that you can be carrying a gun and they're like, what's up? What you about to do? You know,
sometimes it's that animal you don't expect that will stand up for itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I ran into a bobcat, and bobcats aren't that big, but no, you would think this thing was Godzilla or something because he was standing his ground and hissing at me and, you know, arching his back and hitting the ground with his paws, trying to scare me off. And I'm like, oh, aren't you cute? Aren't you cute? Oh,
there you go. The jackalope.
The bunny rabbit with the antlers. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I do have a report, though, that I collected when I was living in the small town of Benson. There was a guy who was a paranormal investigator of all things. We met by circumstance, I guess. I was just taking my dog for a walk down in the riverbed, and he was doing some investigating down there. And he knew who I was because he's seen me on podcasts. He's like, hey, I got a story to tell you. And as we're talking, he actually guided me towards this tunnel. There was a tunnel that was sticking out from the river wall, and it stuck out pretty far. He was telling me to be really careful when you come to this area because he saw this really grotesque, white-skinned, bald-headed creature that was sitting on the tips of his fingers and the tips of its toes. And it was kind of like rocking back and forth. And he said the eyes were really deep and they were round and black. And he said you could see the teeth.
Me as a pale crawler.
And it was like, it was clicking its teeth. It was making this clicking sound that he kind of, you know, said was like the predator, that little, that kind of thing. And he said that it was just standing there, sitting there, just looking around. Its head was moving really fast side to side.
The jerking motion. Thing.
Yeah. And he said that the only time it actually did anything is when he accidentally sneezed. This thing like popped up and it looked right where he was and it looked right in the bushes he was hiding in for a minute. And it scattered. It moved really fast and went into that tunnel and just disappeared down that tunnel.
Now, see, that's another thing. These things that these people are seeing in tunnels, because I've actually seen some video. There's the one where this guy's roaming around in a tunnel and he looks down a corridor and these two things pop out, look out around it like they hear him. Ooh. And he actually goes after them and turns the corner and it's a whole nother turn. They're gone.
Wow.
I had gotten a hold of the guy that did the video and talked to him on the phone. And he said that they moved really fast. He said all he saw was the shine of their eyes and a little bit of the head. He said from what they could tell, what he could tell they were a white color, very pale, and they moved really fast. He said those two, it was like he said there was a big one and a little one. If you look at the video, I'll see if I can find the video.
Okay, yeah, please do.
And send it to you. A tall one looks out first. It actually like steps out and looks right at him. And then it kind of pulls back, and then a little one comes out, and you can't tell if it's crawling, but it's smaller. Looks around the corner, and then they both look around the corner, and then they're gone. And I'm like, those are paracrawlers. Just what
Yeah.
these people are seeing in these sewers are these paracrawlers.
There's a really creepy video out there. Rick something, I forgot the guy's last name, but he actually captured what looks like a pale crawler outside. He's got his little tablet and he's recording it on his tablet. And just the way this thing is moving, it just does not even look human. It's so almost like a Matrix kind of move. It's got that jerky kind of movement where it's almost like it's glitched or whatever. But yeah, he's calling his pastor and he's telling his pastor, hey, I'm seeing this thing. It's back again. You know, it's a creepy video. I mean, we should have found that so we could show it on here, but
yeah, I'm going to see if I can find his, because I know a lot of people show it in their like top 10s and stuff. It was an older video.
Right. Yeah. In this video though, like you can see the thing move forward and then it moves back and it kind of like crouches down and it's like, you know, bobbing and weaving. Yeah, it stands up and it moves back again. It goes back into the woods and it comes back out again. It's creepy. It's one of those things that if you were to see that when you're alone at night.
No, we saw this one. Well, I saw it. We were camping. It was probably about 2 years before I got married. So I was probably I was about 20, 21. And we were camping down by Cincinnati, down by the river, and down toward Harrison, Ohio. It was very interesting because I ended up moving and I ended up working there years later. But anyways, we were camping. We were down by the river. We just got done fishing. Everybody was kind of crashing and hanging out. And I went wandering around because I like to wander in the woods. Of course. The woods are my thing. Yeah. And it was really weird. I kept seeing something move behind this big boulder. And I'm like, so I start to walk toward it thinking, I thought at first it was a coon because all I was seeing, it was real low and it kept popping its head out. So I thought maybe it was a coon or something, an animal. So I walk around as soon as I come around the corner of the thing, this long white thing, just like all the other times I described, it's long, it's running on all fours. It runs off into a bunch of like a patch of trees. And then it turns around and it squats and looks at me and kind of tilting its head and then it's doing that jerking motion. Interesting. And it started making that the ones I hear or see, they make this squeaking noise. It's really irritating.
Yeah, I've heard about that. A lot of people I've talked to said
making this noise, and it kind of popped its body up like it was trying to puff itself up. Like it was, like a frog would do, puff itself up. And it looked at me and never stayed there. And then I took a step forward and it booked. I mean, as soon as I took that step forward, it was gone.
Oh, so it does what I do when I hear a strange noise at night. I puff up like, hey!
Come on, man.
Yep.
Lotus, I hope you're well, hon.
Hello to anyone I missed in chat, by the way.
Yes, welcome all.
I got another encounter too, though, dude. This is actually from Arizona as well. This one's kind of creepy, okay? So I got this from a homeless man. Now, he wasn't like, destitute guy. He actually chose to be homeless. He was actually living out in a very big tent because he just didn't want to be near people. Right. And he had a buddy that actually was staying out there with him too, but his buddy actually had an incident where he took the hell off because he was creeped out. So his buddy was staying in a smaller tent. All right. It was a one-man tent. And he kind of made it a habit where he just, he had his feet sticking out at night, because he wanted to stay cool during the hot summer nights. Well, everything was quiet. He said that this happened for like a week straight, but he said that something was coming around at night. And at first his friend thought it was a javelina, maybe a coyote. So he was trying to put up like little snare traps, little wire traps so he could hear it coming. Right. Well, these wire traps that were attached to tin cans so they would rattle. Nothing was setting them off, which if it was a coyote or a javelina, they're going to walk right into it. Oh, yeah. So he said whatever it was, knew it was there, and it was smart enough to step over it. But something was coming up to him while he was sleeping and was jabbing him in the leg, was poking him in the leg. And he said that in the tent? Almost. It was like sticking its arm into the tent, poking him real quick, and then taking off. And so he said that like he thought maybe it was his friend messing with him. He's like, it's not funny. You got to stop poking when I'm trying to sleep. And so his friend is like, hey, man, it's not me. I'm down here. I'm not going to walk to where you're sleeping at night just to poke you and run. I'm not going to do that. So he's just like, yeah, whatever. it just kept happening. This kept happening over and over again. And then something started stealing food from his campfire. Right.
Geez.
And he started like taking the food and he was putting it in a cooler, and he would lock the cooler with a padlock. And he said that's when things changed, because he would hear this high pitched clicking noise. It was almost like a trilling kind of noise. And then he would hear these really deep moaning and groaning as something was coming down the hill. You could hear it snapping the twigs and kicking the rocks.
So it was doing like I said, it would moan and groan as it was running.
Yeah. So he said that he woke up because he heard this thing coming one night. And he's like, and what my friend saw, he's like, it wasn't a human. This thing was sitting on the palm of its hands with its legs kind of splayed and just looking right at my friend with its shoulders kind of squared. He said it was pale, pale white. It had these black eyes, no hair on it at all, but it had like these rotting teeth. But he said there was blood around the mouth. And he said that his friend threw rocks at this, and he did hit it. He hit it directly, and it took off. But he said 20 minutes later, it came back again, but it had friends.
Oh,
and this is why his friend packed up his camp. His friend packed up his camp. And he told him, I'm out. He's like, I'm getting the hell out of here. You should get the hell out of here too, because I don't know what these things are, but they're not friendly. And his friend did take off, and he will not go back there.
And the guy's still there?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And he said that, he hears these whistles and these clicks at night, but he's like, they're not messing with me for some reason. And he thinks it's because he takes his old food, he takes it in a plastic bag, ties up the bag, and throws the bag out there. And he says the bags are never there within a day or two. So he's like, maybe they're.
So he's feeding them. Maybe they're not leaving him alone because he's feeding them.
But what happens when he stops feeding them, though? There's a problem.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the same different as any wild animal. You feed them like a bear or something comes to your house and you're feeding them. And when you stop feeding them, they're gonna start getting a little testy. Where's my food?
That's why I don't agree with the people that habituate Bigfoot or Dogman. That's always a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Now, I agree with you, Chris, on that about the echolocation thing, because there are times when I've heard the clicking and that's what it sounds like, a bat or something bouncing things off. Well, you think if the eyes are blackened and set in, that makes perfect sense. The clicking would be a way, or a sound would be a way to kind of bounce that, the echolocation thing. So I totally agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people describe the clicking almost like the whales make, the orca whales make.
Yes.
So that's echolocation. That's echolocation.
Personally, but I've heard people describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's echolocation that orcas are using. So if these things are making a similar noise, it only kind of makes sense that, it is echolocation.
Yeah, dolphins make the same noise too.
Yep.
But see, I've heard the clicking in between the squeaks, but it's usually squeaks and grunts, and the grunts are always accompanied by it moving.
Yeah.
The squeaking, I think, is just maybe a warning.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always facing me when it does it. You can tell even when I don't see it and know it's out there, and it's squeak. It's like, don't come near me. Come in, stay away, stay away. I'm going to make a weird noise and keep you away, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would make sense. It definitely would make sense. And I think the groaning, I mean, bears groan when they move. If you ever heard a bear move and you hear the
huff.
So,
I call it the huff.
Yeah, the huffing. Oh, yeah. When you hear the huffing, oh, I got to go home.
Coming, yeah.
Yep.
Now, Andrew, if he's still in here, he'd appreciate this. We were in a truck stop out east, just past Zanesville on 70.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to talk to the truck drivers. I talked to a lot of truck drivers. My dad was a mechanic for Wonder Bread. So he always dealt with these guys in the semis and the bread trucks. Some of the stories that come from these guys are just insane.
Yeah.
Just like, cops and paramedics. I've heard great stories from them.
Yeah.
But this guy was telling me a story how he was out west, out toward the Badlands is what he called it.
Okay.
And he said one night he was coming back from a run. He was going through the Badlands. And he said this huge white thing was just kind of squatting in the middle of the street, in the middle of the highway or the road. And it looked like it had a rabbit, and it was plucking at it, tearing at it.
Poor
and
rabbit.
He stopped because he thought it was a human. He thought somebody had gone a little. and he stopped, and he said he started to get out of the truck. As soon as he opened the door, it stood up on, like the crouching behavior. But he said it was real tall. He said it was probably a good 6-7 foot long, because it never really stood up, but it was really long. He said it was really long. He said when it ran off, it looked like it had a stub for a tail on the back end of its butt.
Interesting.
And he said it ran off into that darkness. And he said it was really weird, because being as white as it was, when it hit the darkness, it left the headlights. It was like gone.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I think with the white skin, it would absorb the darkness around it, though. I mean, if there's no moonlight or any natural
I think he said it was really cloudy. It looked like it had just stormed or something. He didn't go into much detail. He was more focused on telling the story. But he said it was grunting. He said as soon as it took off, it was grunting, and it moved really fast. And he said as soon as it got out of my headlights, I couldn't see it anymore.
Interesting.
But he said it freaked him out because he never seen anything like it. But when he told me it had a stub on the back of it, I'm like, it had a tail at one time? What was? I never heard of the stub being on the back of it. He said it was, like how some people cut the tails off of dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. He said that's what it looked like.
Interesting.
And he said it freaked him out because it had blood all over it. So it definitely was a fresh kill.
Wow. Interesting.
And he said he'd never seen anything. I kept thinking maybe it's a barrel crawler.
It's possible.
I never heard, but the way he described it sounded like a barrel crawler until he brought up the stub on its butt.
Yeah, well, it could be. I mean, who knows? There are people that have tails like that too. I mean, if they're related to humans in any way, who's to say they don't have the same, problems that we get?
Yeah, that's
possible. There's a lot of weird theories though about pale crawlers. I don't know if you've heard of the whole, dogmen were put here to, protect us from the pale crawlers. I don't really believe in that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that will tell you that dogman's purpose is to hunt down and kill these pale crawlers, but I don't necessarily believe that. I mean,
I've heard that dogmen are supposed to be like guardians of Sasquatch. I've heard that a couple times.
I think when people do that, they're trying to answer one mystery with another, and that's not really productive, because I mean, and all the time that I've been doing Bigfoot research and dogman research, I've never seen a dogman teaming up with a Bigfoot or vice versa.
No, I haven't. No. I've never heard any stories of that. Now,
yeah, I don't think they team up like that. I don't think Bigfoot, owns them as pets. I don't think that dogmen are out to kill pale crawlers. I think that, they probably could kill each other if they wanted to.
Probably.
They're opportunistic predators, so I'm sure one could kill the other. But I don't think that, there's a mission. I don't think that the pale crawlers are these evil entities.
I envisioned when he told me, one guy told me that, goes, no, dogmen are like pets or guardians of the Squatch. And I'm like, I had envisioned the Sasquatch walking through the woods. Have you ever seen the Johnny Quest movie where the big cartoon where the big tall-headed guy's walking with the Komodo dragons? That's what I envisioned, this big old Bigfoot walking through the woods with these dog men leashes,
I mean, if that were the case, though, it'd be so much easier to find proof of dogman. Like, we have the hardest time finding tracks for dogman, but, we find Bigfoot tracks. It's just like the pale crawlers. We don't really find any footprints or handprints of these guys.
No.
Why is that? Why is it we don't find that? I mean, they're out there, yeah.
Right.
I mean, could it be that they know how to cover their tracks? Are they smart enough to kind of dust away wherever they step? I don't know.
Hello, Roger. Hey, Nutslap. Yeah, I just don't see that either. I mean, it just sounds weird. Now, the thing with the paracrawlers to me is every time that I've seen one, I've either been by caves, like on the couple times it was like abandoned properties, and there would be a well.
Yep.
Like this one out west that I went to, that we went to an abandoned house off of 70 out west. And it was just outside Springfield. And this place, it was an old farm that had been left. Actually, a lot of stuff is still in the house, so nobody knows why these people just up and left. So we went out, and there's an old well. And that's where we saw one come out of the well.
Interesting.
And it headed straight for a cornfield. And
sounds about right.
It was like, okay. And I'm like, there you go, guys. They were all laughing like that was messed up.
Yeah, I don't want to really see a pale crawler. I'm very curious about them, but from what they look like, I'm not sure I want to see one.
The first 2 times it kind of freaked me out, but now when I see it, I guess I got it in my head that they seem more scared of me than if they are aggressive. It has to be something. I don't know. They've never been aggressive toward me. Now they seem to be like giving warnings to stay away or something. I mean, but they always seem to run. Every time we've ever tried to move toward them, they always seem to run.
Okay. Yeah, my friend Missy Lee, she's working on a documentary about pale crawlers. In fact, I think she's working on 2 documentaries. Really? Yeah, I'm going to be in one of them. She's actually going to come to where I am in Arizona and interview me about the Wendigo. So I'm going to offer my take on the Wendigo and pale crawlers in her second part of her documentary.
Yeah,
so
I agree. They're awful lot alike in the looks, the part.
They are.
And now we talked about this Saturday night. Where did these pale crawlers come from? I said, I wasn't joking. I said, well, could they have been landowners who had been cursed by a natives or by a witch? That they didn't want to give up the land, or they destroyed the land, or did they directly curse the land, and that was the product of the curse?
I mean, it could be, but with all the thousands of encounters that you get about the pale crawlers, though, I mean, they're everywhere pretty much all at once. So would there be that many cursed people? I don't think so, because the curses.
I agree, but I thought that was when we talked about it and I golfed that night. I was like, I could see some of that in some instances.
Maybe. I mean, maybe in the rare exception.
That's highly possible.
Well, again, I mean, we kind of take a U-turn here because that kind of goes right back to the Wendigo. Okay, because remember when we were talking about the Wendigo, I was telling you that one way to become a Wendigo was to be cursed by a shaman.
Right.
So is it possible that some of them might have been the result of curses? Yeah, maybe.
And maybe they're not pale crawlers. Maybe they are a version of a Wendigo.
Maybe. That's possible too. It's kind of a deep rabbit hole when you start getting into this.
Yeah, they're all rabbit holes. No matter what you go through, they're all rabbit holes.
Tie a rope around your waist because it gets really deep really quick.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It's perilous. I just wish I would stop calling them skinwalkers. Okay.
Would you like to end on a good story? You got a good encounter?
Yeah, just real quick though. People need to stop calling the pale crawlers skinwalkers. They are not skinwalkers at all. So, but no, I do have one of a pale crawler stealing trash from an old lady. And she's very fond of the pale crawler that she had on her property. She said that the stealing the trash was almost like a game they played, where she would try to like hide certain things in the trash when she put it out in these big green trash bags. And she would try to put rocks and stuff over the trash can to see how smart it was. And she said this thing was really quiet. You used to just grab the rocks, put them down next to the trash can, open the lid, grab the bag and run. And she said it was like a game that like you could actually hear this thing chittering is what she called it. But she said it was laughing. Like it sounded like it was having fun with her.
Like she was,
Yeah, like it was like it liked, like it actually liked her. Like when she would go out to have her coffee and her cigarette, she said that she always knew that she said it was a he. She was very specific about it, that he was right there. He would hide just beneath the deck, but he would tap on the deck to let her know that he was there. And I thought that was kind of sweet in a way because it shows they're not total monsters. And
it kind of gives you a different look.
Yeah. She said it would knock, she would knock on the board to let her know that it was there because it didn't want to scare her, obviously. So when she came outside and when it was under the deck, it would knock on the deck to say, hey, I'm here, so don't creep out.
Now the question is, if somebody would try to break into her house and it saw, would it protect her?
She said that it would. She said that, when strangers come up to the door that she can hear it hissing and growling. So she said that she has like a friendship with this thing. She has to tell them, it's okay. I know who it is. It's a friend of mine. I mean, it seems far-fetched, but the way the lady talked about it, there was definitely an emotional attachment to her.
Wow. That is kind of cool, though.
Yeah.
Now,
but that's kind of sweet.
I had a friend. She was kind of peculiar anyways, but she was sweet.
Right.
She swears that there was this like bat-like creature that she lived in her mother's old house. It was big, one of these big old Victorian houses. And she swear this thing lived in the attic, that it was friends with her mother. And it would squawk and make these echo, like clicks and stuff every time somebody would come to the door. So it would start before they'd even get to the door.
Wow.
And the only reason it looked like a bat-like creature is they would see it leave at night. Mm-hmm. And they said it was like 3 to 4 feet tall. It had bat-like wings. And it was all black, furry. Not fur, but like fur. And it had a really round head with these big old ears.
Sounds kind of cute, actually.
And she said, actually, it was really terrifying to look at. It had really long, the legs it didn't have arms.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a bat, but it had legs. And the claws, she said, were like 2 to 3 inches long. So you knew it do damage. But she said at times it literally looked like a mix of creatures, but we could never get close or see it long enough to see it's true. But they would see it leave. They said it would leave every night about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. That they would stay up and watch it leave, and it would be back before dawn.
Wow!
And
so it was like a
passed, and she took over the house.
So it was like a mini man bat kind of thing.
I don't know. She never took pictures. She would talk about it all the time, and we always thought, she's messing with us.
Right.
But one of her girlfriends said that she used to stay there with her, and you would hear this thing. It was like as soon as somebody started coming to the driveway, it would go off.
Weird. And
that she took her out one night, and about a little after 1 o'clock, she saw this big, huge, it wasn't big, but for 3 or 4 feet, they had a steeple on the house, and one of the windows on it had no of the slots were gone, and it come out of there.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And she said, I saw it take off, but it didn't stay long. I know I couldn't get a look, but there is definitely, she goes, there is definitely something up there.
That's kind of cool.
And she only stayed a couple nights. She goes, I couldn't stay anymore because it was starting to creep me out. She said,
I could see that. Yeah.
Moving around up there and everything. And I'm like, I always wanted to go visit her, but I don't even know if she lives there anymore. I haven't talked to her for like probably 12 years.
Oh, wow.
But, man, she would tell these stories, and it would freak the one girl out because I know it's true. I've seen it. And it's like, what?
That's neat. That's kind of creepy, but neat.
You never know. You about ready to call it, my good man?
Yes, indeed, good sir.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us. The only reason I got to book early is I got to take care of a few things. We're still trying to get a tombstone for my brother put on his grave. They still haven't put it out there yet. So I'm kind of getting anxious. It's been 2 months now, and I need to go talk to somebody.
What's the delay?
It's just a flat stone. It's about a base. It's a mess. I know it's done. I've seen it. It's done. But the cemetery is not put. You have to put down like a concrete base on it to put the tombstone on, so it doesn't sink. So it's a nightmare, and I got to go down there and find out from the head guy why it hasn't been done yet and why it's taken 2 months.
Go handle business.
I'm going to. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Take care, everybody.
What are we going to talk about next week? So I know what to see if Gemma has a video on it, so I can play it Saturday night.
Text me later, and we'll talk about it.
That sounds good. Folks,
all right.
What a wonderful day. Have a good day. I'll see you guys on the flip side of tomorrow night. Ryan, thank you for joining us. And yes, I'll see you guys on the flip side of midnight. Gemma will be here Friday. Hopefully Pixie will be here Thursday. She'll let us know. But Gemma will be here Friday for Oracles. So I'll see all you folks about 7:15. Much love to you all. Have a great day. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for sharing your lunchtime with us. Later days.